and we will start. So welcome to our special call. My name is Miranda Martin, and I am direct to Ryan Miller, who's actually on the line here. So we'll have him talking most of the time today. I'm just joking. But this call is really targeted towards the younger generation. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and they said that in 2025, 70% of the working class will be the millennial age group. So one of the things that we really wanted to do is bring on one of our favorite Symmetry millennials, Andrew Jimenez, today, so that he could really share with you guys his path of how he went from starting when he was making like $12 an hour when Symmetry found him, and within like about 3 years has been able to raise that income up to about $200,000 a year. So obviously the same guy that was, making $12 an hour is not the same guy now that's running a $1.7 million agency. I know that in the agency owner category, he was top 5 in all of Symmetry for APV, app count, recruiting new recruits, and the just keeps on going, right? So Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time out to really help us connect with this group and help them move as quickly into where you're at in as short amount of time as you. So welcome to the call, man.
Well, I appreciate it, Miranda. Actually, really thank you for allowing me to just really take part and kind of co-host this with you. Over the last, I would say about a year and a half, it has been more or less, rather than, a nicety or like something I wanted to become more of a passion for me to just kind of start sharing my story and hopefully impacting just 1 or 2 people. I mean, Ryan, yourself, you guys have both had a huge role in really my success and really where I've gotten today. I mean, yourself, you're running agencies like $500,000 a month in sales, right? 450, 500, and that's almost 4 times my size. So it just means so much to me that you would invite me on your call, just to kind of really talk and really share my story, but at the same time, hopefully impact some people, whether you're new or perspective as to what you really want to achieve and what you're really looking for.
Well, so Andrew, how old were you when you started with Symmetry? I always kind of lose track of.
Yeah, I started with Symmetry when I was 21 years old.
Okay. And when did you actually become official agency owner?
I became an agency owner at 22 years old.
Okay. And you always say that you 110 to hit the top of the on the top of the contract level there, so I can't wait for you to do that. I know it's just so impressive to see someone your age kind of grow into that position. Oh, somebody's being loud here. If you're not talking,
make Kushner a host, and then he can manage the meeting.
Where is Kushner? Where are you, Dave? He's off my screen here. Let me find him. I don't see Kushner on here.
Yeah, and then Dave can just help us out.
Okay. I don't see him. There's so many people on. I can't kind of
go left or right. You go to the left or the right mirror. You'll get more people. The screen.
Okay, I'll give it to you, Larry, because I got you. Make co-host. There we go. All right. Cool.
There we go.
All right. So I know Andrew, and being your age and kind of hitting these accolades already, are you the only one in Symmetry that's kind of around your age group that's been able to have some massive success within like the first 3 or 4 years of the company? Is that like rare?
No, actually, I don't think so at all. There's plenty of other people. Heck, both of my roommates are, they're my age. They're both 24 now. Grant Lieber is an agency owner. Jackson Leonard is a top producer. Pretty much my best friend in the company, Tim Penso, he's making probably another $10,000, $15,000 a month more than I am, and he's just turned 25 last month. So no, it's not that millennials in insurance in itself too, Miranda, is it's definitely an older demographic, right? It's usually between 30 to about 55 is pretty consistent, and there aren't a ton of millennials, and I think it's just a stigma that no millennial wants to be an insurance agent. But I don't think everybody.
On the top of your list when you were like writing out things you wanted to be.
Yeah, right. Just going to college, insurance agent, right? No. And I really think it's more towards this. It's that people don't want to get into insurance, or millennials don't want to get into insurance because they feel like they need more experience. But I'll tell you this, when I'm hiring people, there's really only two characteristics that I look for, like two traits, period. I want hungry and humble. I want somebody that's got $1 to their name, never done, they could have never done anything before, but if they've got all the hunger in the world, where, when they're waking up in the morning and they're just in the ditches and they really don't know what's going to happen or what's going to go on, and it just seems like life is just slapping them upside the head day to day. Like, what's going to wake you up to pick yourself up and work harder than you've ever worked before every single day? That's really the hunger that I look for. But the second piece is really this one. It's just humble, being extremely, extremely coachable. And every person I ask or that wants to come on to Symmetry, I ask this one question. I just proposition it this way. Take a look at my agency. The top 3 individuals in my agency came into my business, had 0 insurance experience walking in. And the top 2 had 0 sales experience walking in either. So what does that tell you about what it takes to be successful in Symmetry? Doesn't take experience, doesn't take any skills or talents or exceptional, silver tongue speaking. It just takes hard work, dedication, and coachability.
No, that's absolutely true. And if I look at my agency as well, Andrew, I think if I look at the top 10, I don't think a single one of them came from any sort of insurance experience. Some might have had some sales. I know for me, I hated sales. I was petrified of it. So I just really had to do the system, and I just tried to do it like more than everyone because I knew I sucked at it. So I just figured if I did it like on overdrive, then I would maybe get good, right? But yeah, so why do you feel that Symmetry is for this age group? Why do you feel that other people can duplicate kind of what you've done?
Well, when I really think about that, there's a lot of things that pop into my mind. And, I'll just kind of give everybody an idea as to kind of like prepare the mind of really what it really takes for a millennial to win. Honestly, every time anybody says those millennials, it seems like there's always a condescending word or phrase followed by it, right? They think like those millennials, they're so entitled. They're so lazy. They don't understand what it means to work hard. And in truth, in my personal opinion, I think we're the exact opposite of what everybody perceives us to be. The only reason we get mentioned that, the aforementioned, is because the people who are talking to us just aren't hitting our values and really the respect that we want and what that means to us. It's kind of funny. I know a lot of my friends, we all want to go out there and save the world, make a ton of money, not work very hard, be able to work wherever we want, travel the world. But it's really hard to do all of that without a large amount of income. And a great quote I learned very early on is it's hard to help the poor if you're already broke. You can only do so much. But a lot of us, when I say us, I just mean millennials. It's like we want to travel the world. We want freedom. We want independence. We want the ability to just go do whatever it is that we want to do when we want to and really live up to those aspirations, make the world a better place, make a lasting impact time and time and time again. And so capital to me is just really a means to an end, right? That you get to opportunity, the opportunity to really just live the life the way that you want, pay the bills how you choose, and then on top of that, maybe use your capital or income to give back, whatever it really means for you.
I know, Andrew, you had made a comment when we're kind of comparing the lifestyles. You said something along the lines of, it's better to travel the world. What was it, the line that you had said?
I said, it's cool to travel the world, but it's a lot more fun at like a 5-star hotel than a hostel. Like, I've done both. Yeah, it's a little bit more like hostels are cool, but a 5-star hotel is like, wow.
That's awesome, dude. So okay, so now we've kind of outlined kind of what kind of caught your eye about Symmetry, right? It wasn't the insurance part of the business. Did you sell for a long time? Tell us about that. What did that look like when you started? I know you're out of the field now. You've been out of the field for quite some time, but what did that look like?
Relatively within the insurance industry, no. Right. I think everybody's perception, me personally, I thought the exact same thing as everybody. I don't want to be Jake at State Farm. I don't want to go door knocking. I don't want to go pitching friends and family. I don't want to go out there and just absolutely suffer on the phones, calling people and trying to, pitch them something they don't need. And when I really found out what Symmetry was, is that we actually have mailers that clients who are already interested, and we just get to give them a call, book an appointment, go see them and help them out with a policy that if something happened to them, Miranda, your kids don't have to worry about not only the loss of their mother, but on top of that, the loss of their home. Like it was so much more impactful to me that, okay, now I get to build a relationship with these people, be an agent for them, and just pretty much be a liaison for them to the insurance carriers, right? And so in relative to insurance time, now 18 months, it was pretty efficient in terms of being in the field, actively producing, to then transitioning to build an agency. And truthfully, you kind of compared that level of 100% commission, because I think everybody gets scared of that, to the other jobs that we can get, which is 40 hours a week for 40 years. And the idea of a retirement that, for me, 24, retiring 40 years from now at 65, that seems so far away. Like, why do I want to spend all of my life working to then 40 years from now be able to travel the world, experience? I want to do that in like what I feel like is my prime, when I can do the most fun, have the utmost experiences, be able to do everything where it doesn't take me down to go do stuff, and really experience, enjoy things that I want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the part that's kind of just mind-blowing to me, obviously you're creating your dream, you're living it, but if I were to take this back, right, let's take it back to when you were making $8 to $12 an hour, let's take it back to that, Andrew, and let's kind of walk through, how did you get there? Because I think everyone on the line is wondering, yeah, I want that, right? They're saying, me too, I want that. So share us how that kind of unfolded.
Yeah. Is it okay if I get a little deeper, just vulnerable with you?
That's fine.
So guys, like I said, I started with Symmetry when I was 21 years old. But leading before that, it was February of 2015. I was going to the University of Arizona, and I was studying pre-med, pre-business. My goal was to be a plastic surgeon, open up my own facility, open up a lab, create an empire, make a ton of money, go do whatever I wanted. And then I found out that it was going to take me close to like 50 something years to build something like that. And I started delving into the world of entrepreneurship. And I got to the point in and just in my life, where I'm learning from school and college from these guys who ran companies, CFO, CMO, COOs, where they ran them, but they never built them. Like, I wanted the guy that was in the garage trying to figure something out. I wanted the guy that almost had no college degree, but yet was respected to the utmost. Like, I wanted that guy who was building business, cold calling. And so one summer, I don't have any internships, nothing like that. So my friends are flying to Hong Kong, and I realized I got to build my resume to go to Eller Business College, or College of Business. And I end up looking up online in entrepreneurship, Craigslist app. There's just a quick internship thing, and I end up calling the guy. His name is Martin, and so I'm 19 at the time. And he says, "Yeah, sounds good. You sound like a sharp guy, Andrew. Here's the thing, though. I want you to go read 3 books." And so he said, "I want you to go read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Rich Dad's Cash Flow, and Think and Grow Rich." And I read all 3 of them in a week.
So repeat that. I don't know if everyone was writing those down. So if you're not, yeah, definitely write those down. You read them in a week. And what are they again?
Yeah. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Rich Dad's Cash Flow, and Think and Grow Rich. Cool. And that was a catalyst for me to start moving to this realm, or the idea of entrepreneurship. And what happened was, about a year and a half later, 3 semesters into college, I got to my 3rd semester with in my 4th semester, and I just got to the point where it's February of 2015, and I just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And I walked out of college that day. And I remember as I made this decision, I was very happy. I was very like, okay, this is the next stage of my life. This is what I want to do. I know that I don't necessarily know where I need to go or what I need to do, but I know that I can do it. And then one of the most earth-shattering experiences really hit me. I remember getting a phone call from my dad one day, and I was at work, and he said, "I need you to come by the house." I said, "Okay, no, sure." So I drove all the way home. It took me about 30 minutes. I remember pulling up to the house, and I remember just a pit in my stomach starting to hit. And I walk in the home, and my dad asked me to sit down at the kitchen table. And my dad's a big Dominican guy. I mean, he's big, he's dark, he's 250 pounds, played professional baseball. And then, on top of that, he pretty much runs the Border Patrol for a lot of things they do. And so across from the table, he goes, "Andrew," he gave me an ultimatum. He goes, "Andrew, you're going back to school." And I said, "No, Dad, I'm good. Don't worry about it. I don't really want to." And he said, no, Andrew, you're going to go back to school and I'll pay for it. And I said, "Dad, don't worry about it. The U.S. government would give me a full ride to the U of A, and I didn't care to stay there now. Whether you pay for it or them, it doesn't matter to me." And at that point, I saw the heaviest just twinkle of disappointment in my dad's eyes. And I remember him standing up, and the only words that left his mouth were, "Get out."
Wow.
And I remember walking to the door, not being able to say bye to my stepmom or a little brother. And I just remember the door turning around and just slamming in my face.
Jeez.
And I walked to my car, got in my car, and I drove to the nearest park, and I just started bawling my eyes out. Because what hurt the most, wasn't the fact that I'm homeless. That wasn't the fact that hurt. What hurt the most was my parents didn't believe in me as much as I believed in myself.
Wow.
And I remember getting on the phone. I called Martin, my mentor at the time, and I said, I'm just crying, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. I have nowhere to go, nowhere to live. And, he lived in Tucson at the time. He could have offered his home and all that to me. And he says something that was one of the most profound things that was really just led me to the position that I wanted. He said, "Andrew, you can turn around right now. You can go back to your house. You can apologize to your dad. You can go back to school and live the life that they want you to live." He said, "Or you can take this moment and you can either let it make you or break you. Really, the choice is up to you." And at that moment, Miranda, I took that time to take 5 seconds. I drove to Tucson and somehow got an apartment for $600 a month with 0 credit. And that time frame from February of 2015 to about August was the hardest time of my entire life. Guys, the U.S. government came at me the next month saying they need $12,000 of student loans back because I was on a grant. And now I owe the U.S. government $12,000 in a month, and I don't make that much money. I was making $1,500 a month. So I had $600 in rent, $600 in student loans because I had to set up a 2-year payment plan for them. And I had $150 left over for food, gas, electricity, you name it. Maxed out a credit card to $600. I think it was $750 was the line on it, so I could put the security deposit to walk into the apartment. And I remember just nonstop calls, Miranda, from creditors. I remember nonstop calls from my phone bill. I got so good at being broke that I pushed off every bill till the last possible minute before it got turned off. Electricity, water, didn't matter what it was. I lived on PB&J and cereal, and I didn't even get to really go to the grocery store. I went to the dollar store a lot of times and bought the knockoff stuff because it was a lot cheaper. And I remember my fancy meals was Taco Bell. It was $6 for a nice quesadilla. And that 6-month, 8-month span taught me so much about what it means to stress about bills, starve, hustle, drive. Yet everything that was going on, I was listening to so much personal development. I was reading consistently. I wasn't going to let those things that I learned in those 3 books, just dissipate and disappear as I fought through these small things. Instead, I just started listening to Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar. I started listening to Les Brown, Empowered Grant Cardone, all these guys who rose from nothing to something, and that it was all possible that way. When the coworkers in my stocking box in a warehouse, or they're making $3 an hour more than I am, are telling me, Andrew, why are you doing that stuff? Who are you listening to now? Why are you watching that video? What do you think you're going to achieve? You should just go full time here. You'll make more money and get benefits. All that time, because I knew I could do something. And truthfully, Miranda, I just needed one person that would believe in me more than I believed in myself. And that was Martin. And I just purely hung to that as close as I could.
Wow. I don't think I've heard that whole story before. Andrew, that's crazy. So I know and we're going to have some question answers at the end of this. That's going to be the wrap up. So if you guys have questions for Andrew, just kind of hang on to them. But what would you say? Obviously, a 19-year-old like that severely into personal development is not normal, right? Right? The fact that you got, believe in it so much right off the bat is just admirable. I know for me, one of the big things that I just kind of made like a personal rule was when I was starting in business, if someone that was where I wanted to be recommended a book, 100% of the time I got it that day and I read it. And it doesn't matter if it's a friend or someone I looked up to or a boss or whatever, I've just always done that. But and I think that helped me kind of get started at a very young age too. But what would you say to the younger generation on the line that haven't yet, dove into personal development? Obviously the way that it sounds like was the game changer for you to even do any of this.
The biggest thing, I'll say this, if you want to achieve anything in life, if you have dreams, goals, desires, there's one thing I truly believe, Miranda, it's that you have these dreams, these goals, these desires, these things that you want to become, do, and achieve so much more than you ever thought possible. Yet I promise you that the thoughts you've had would not have been placed in your heart if you didn't think you could ever achieve it. You wouldn't just dream up this stuff and just tell yourself, oh yeah, it must be nice one day to be rich, if you didn't think, man, I think I could do it if I had the right vehicle. And so what I really implore you to do, and those who are listening, is you have to start growing yourself. Because here's what happened to me. I go through all this whole experience, this life experience, 8 months of just pure, not necessarily depression, but just getting knocked upside down, left, right, who knows what, left in the dark alley to, get kicked around again. And then 5 months later, I get introduced to symmetry. I watched Martin's wife, Rita Law, built her entire agency that 2015. And in January, he comes and brings it to me and he says, Andrew, you should really take a look at insurance. I know you've never really cared to do it before. You've already told me, you don't want to be Jake at State Farm yet. This minimum, it could probably help you pay off some debt. And
he wore a white t-shirt.
And to be honest with you, Mer, when I really looked at this and saw what was available, I said, man, I really want to do sales. I don't know how I feel about 100% commission, but I'm willing to give it a shot. And then here's what happens next. Martin goes and he says, okay, great. I say, hey, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. If you guys are really making, 3 policy sales would make you $1,500. It's all I need to replace my income. I'm in. Just tell me what I got to do. He says, great. Now here's a conference ticket. Book your flight, get a hotel, and get yourself out to the next national conference. And by the way, it's 3 weeks away. And I looked at him and I just go, hey, Martin, here's my bank account. It's got -150 with Wells Fargo on there. And I'm like, I don't know where you expect me to get this money out of nowhere. But he says, Andrew, if there's one thing I know about you, he says that you're pretty resourceful. And so I just turned 21. I got my insurance license January 21st of 2016. And then I'm literally preparing myself as I'm just thinking, I'm saying, all this personal development, all this stuff that I've gone through, all this could really just propel me to the success that I want here if I just really commit. Because guys, all I needed from anyone was just the idea that you heard my values, you heard what I was looking for, you saw what I wanted in my life, and that you would support me. You had to believe in me. And I saw Ryan Miller speak at that same event, that first one that I went to. And I got started. And the first thing I did, Mer, was I sold 3 policies. I sold a policy to my mom, grandma, and stepmom, 3 easiest people I thought I could close. And it made me about $1,500. Took 1,000 of it, bought leads every single week, took 500, got myself out to North Carolina for the conference, got a ticket in a hotel, and split it with a couple roommates. And what happened was, though, my first weekend, it wasn't like I was some profound, exceptional, extraordinary superstar walking in. Mer, I made 182 dials, got rejected 37 times, and only booked 3 appointments. I pulled the absolute most rookie moves you could make. I went out there and I showed up to my 8 o'clock home at 6 o'clock and was calling my 6 o'clock appointment. Hey, I'm knocking on the door and nobody's answering. You outside? He's like, no, I'm in the front door and nobody's here. Oh. So I drive all the way across Phoenix to go and show up, and he just tells me, hey kid, you should probably get your scheduling a little bit better. I don't want to deal business with you. Then I drive back to my 8 o'clock. He's not home. Then I go to my 8 o'clock the next day, and he tells me, no, somebody already came yesterday. I'm good to go. And that Wednesday, I got enough flight and flew to conference. And here's the only thing I was thinking, Mer. Somebody asked me, well, wouldn't you kind of feel down? Like the fact that, you just had a terrible week, didn't do well before. Like, are you just conflicted in your head? Is this going to be for me? And truthfully, no, Mer, the only thing I was thinking about was if I don't succeed at this, everybody else is going to be right. Mm. And I could not let that happen. My pride could not take the hit. Everything that I wanted, I just couldn't dream of other people being right, that you're not allowed to achieve the level of success that you want in your life, that you're not allowed to become all those things that you are able to be. And so on that flight to North Carolina, all I'm thinking is, what is one thing I can walk away with from that meeting and walk away from that conference, that Tuesday, Wednesday, that I can come back and be a success here. And that came when they went on stage, and Casey Watkins, our owner, he just says, stop focusing on what you can control. The only thing you can control in this business is you. And you will always beat the numbers if you put in more numbers. And so that's all I did. I came back. I wasn't a superstar right out the gate, but I made 750 to 1,000 dials the next 2 weekends in a row, Miranda, just to get better on the phone. Day and night, every free time, I was either practicing the phone script or practicing in-home. I didn't make a single sale until February 28th. I went 27 straight days without a single sale on a lead. And I went to Davina Moore's house. I sat down with her and I wrote her a $40 application for her and her kids with a disability income from American Amicable. And then I got paid 3 days later and I was ecstatic. But what happened was this. When that happened, snowball started to hit, because it's not the immediate results that get you to where you want to go, Miranda. It's the prior hand to it. It was the 750 and $1,000 I was putting in those 2 weeks before. It was the countless hours of just constant repetition to get better at my in-home, because I made $1,500 that month, $6,000 the next month, $8,000 the month after that, and $13,000 the month after that. Paid off $12,000 student loans in 8 months and $18,000 of total debt within a year.
Jeez, that's impressive. So Andrew, obviously you had that's a big accomplishment in such a short time, but why didn't you just take the path of least resistance? Why did you, I'd be thinking, if I was 20 years old, I only have $2,000 of bills. I'm just going to make $2,000 and I'm going to take the rest of the month off.
I'll tell you, I did do that. I made mistakes. Okay. I've been, you throw $13,000 in my bank account, you think I'm going to work next month? I was living with grandma at the time, and so my bills were sub $1,200 for me, all my living expenses. I made a ton of money, and now I'm just coasting. And you know what else I did, guys? I went on vacation. That was another mistake I made. One of the big things, though, Mer, that was a huge, huge impact for me, that I think just gets sometimes sidelined, because we do talk about what's the career mean, what's the goals mean, what can you really achieve within Symmetry. And there was that time right after I made about 13 grand. It was between that June, July timeframe. I took my grandma on a vacation. We came back, and my grandma just recently retired from Chase Bank, and Chase was in the middle of revamping their retirement program and clauses, and she actually did not get her retirement for almost 3 to 4 months. And on top of that, she's only living on Social Security. She couldn't take a withdrawal on her 401k, even if it meant the tax hit. And she got dropped from her health insurance because she was now retired from Chase.
Wow.
And so what happened, I remember one day walking in for some of my appointments, I'm on the phone with an agent, and I look over at my grandma, and she's got that type A personality, doesn't want help from nobody.
Uh-huh.
But she's a pretty heavy set diabetic. And she actually almost went into insulin shock because I just realized at that point she was off of her insulin for almost 2 weeks.
Wow.
A1C was close to 13. And I remember going and I said, Grandma, where do I need to go? I drove to Cigna down the street. I gave him my credit card and I dropped $2,000 to bring home insulin to my grandma.
Wow.
That type of stuff is what Symmetry allows you to do. That you can help those that you love or give back or make an impact, because now you're not confined. What if I would have been at a job and I didn't get home until 9 o'clock? What if I didn't necessarily have it because I had to get paid next Friday? But on that Tuesday, I had the money. I knew exactly what I had to do. I just told her, I went and bought it. She paid me back. That doesn't matter to me. It was the fact that if I hadn't been there, what would have happened? And if I didn't have the income or the time, what would have happened?
Wow.
So if you ask me, yeah, Andrew, go out there and make $2 grand, and then you don't have to do anything. You can just take a vacation. I did that. I made mistakes, and you realize, yeah, I can go make $2 grand in a week. But what happens when you want so much more? This goes right back to the idea I talked about before of you can't help the poor if you're broke. You can't achieve those things in your life if you only meet a certain level of expectation that you set a standard for yourself. It's time to set a new standard. What do you want your life to look like? Who do you want to become? Where do you want to be? Who do you want to impact? Where do you want to go? What are you willing to do to achieve all the things you've ever dreamed of? And who's going to stop you? Not a single person except for you.
Solid. So, Andrew, now we've kind of talked about the personal production side, and I know people are probably chopping at the bit to ask you questions, but those are going to have to wait. My phone is blowing up as we speak. But I know that you have a culture of building massive success on your team, and it's not done through personal production, because you admit yourself were you ever an elite producer, or were you even a top producer at Symmetry?
I was a consistent $8,000 to $12,000 a month writer. That means I was making approximately $4 to $6 grand a month.
So you were never writing Dave Kushner numbers, or Rachel Hastings, 6 grand per second month.
If I could ever write 40 grand in a month, I don't know. Maybe I would fall over dead after that. But I was just never that good. I did. My biggest month I've ever written was $26,000. So I made $15,000 that month. Okay. So I did hit a certain level of expectation that we say, hey, you want to lead from the front, this is what you need to do. I went and did it to set the example to my team, but it was because of that, but it was never my consistency. I made what I needed to make to pay my bills, build my business. So
let's talk about how you went from, being a very consistent medium grade producer to a $1.7 million agency owner. I know I've done, calls with you and conference calls with you. So I know that the very first thing you talk about is building. You talk about, you have leaderboards, you have 10 leaderboards for building and 1 for production. You got contests for building. I was like, holy moly, this guy is on fire. But talk to us about that transition. Obviously, you were paying your bills and putting some money away off your personal production, but I know all these guys on the line are how did you do it? Obviously personal growth was number 1, right? We've made that very clear.
Yep.
Number 1 before, how much time did you personal develop then, and what do you do now, just before we dive into the building side of things?
So I did a lot of personal development leading up to Symmetry, just growing myself. However, none of that really prepared me for the level of leadership development I needed to win at Symmetry. Like that was a whole nother category of growth that I had to hit that I started building in Symmetry my second month in the business, March of 2016. But I burnt a lot of people. And see, just like I talked, when I say burnt, I mean, I brought in about 13 people, only one's alive. But it wasn't necessarily even the fact that I wasn't good enough. It's also they weren't good enough too. Because the one person that's still alive, she was my number one producer my first year in the business, my number 4 producer my second year in the business, and my number 5 producer for this last year in the business for her. And she actually, I remember talking to her. She actually made it a point that even though she was a nurse and I didn't know much and I was a young guy figuring this business out, she said, yeah, I'm gonna go figure this thing out too. And we struggled together. And so this growth that you have to go through, you have to develop yourself as an individual that not only one people want to follow, but you yourself are going to match at that level of expectation that you want people to see in you. You need to create an identity in yourself that you are a capable leader, that you are an individual that can go out there and lead people to the success that they want. And that's how you start to grow. Because here's what happened, Mir. January of 2017, I'm just paid off all my debt. I got nothing going on. I get a phone call from Martin, Rita, and Jacob. And it's right around my birthday. Just turned 22. And I very vividly remember that conversation. It goes like this. He goes, hey, Andrew. Hey, how you doing? Talking, chit-chatting. Hey, you did a great job, buddy. You had a great first year. You made about $80,000. Going from 15 grand to this. Totally good within a year. And then they said, but looking over the numbers, you haven't done enough here. Haven't done enough here. Really haven't done enough here. Buddy, we can't put you on stage anywhere. Ooh. I wasn't a future achiever. I wasn't a key leader. I wasn't an agency owner. I was a 22-year-old nobody. And I remember going to that next conference. I had one agent at that conference, and he was sitting to my left. And I watched this next guy walk across stage as a future achiever, 21-year-old agency owner now, Grant Lieber, walk across stage. His future achiever just got started like that past October or August. And he goes, yep, 21 years old, really looking to get after this, really excited for damned if I let that guy beat me to agency owner. And so I hustled my butt off. Yeah, I started just everything that you guys have always said, Miranda, Ryan has told me 20 million times over. Martin and Rita have just like dumped into my brain and pounded into me time and time again. You know, they said, I just started falling to a T and being extremely, extremely coachable, what it needs to be done and what needs to be achieved and the consistency behind that. And what happened was this: January, I produced 18 or $20,000 in production. The next month, February, I did 27,000. March, the next month after that, another it's 25. Angelique did 20 to 25. February of 2017, we did on 3 riders. We put up a whopping like 75 grand. Wow. And then following that, though, we were hustling on recruiting. Mm-hmm. We were doing exactly what Martin Rita said: 20, 40 ZipRecruiter ads, hiring, talking to people, just saying, hey, if this is something that you want to do, great. You can really win here at your own level. Just go out there and make it happen. And we didn't get a single new rider until almost March and April. So January, February, not until the tail end of March, we finally see one other person pop up. And then in April, we went from 4 riders in March to April having almost 8 or 9, to then May having 10, and then June we broke out as agency owner with about 13 riders, doing over $100,000 in premium that year.
Jeez, that's awesome. And I just wanted to back up just a moment, because you said something about, I know we're not going to get into the nuts and bolts on how to recruit and how to do phone calls or any of that stuff, but how many ZipRecruiters were you doing?
I was doing, for me, it was 50. It was 50 Zip ads. I was doing interviews. I was just trying to figure, like, all this stuff, you don't have to be the best, Miranda. But you go through enough people, you go through enough trial and error that you just start to figure it out. So the biggest lesson I learned with this industry those who fail the most win the fastest. Because I promise you, you make enough mistakes, you don't want to make a mistake anymore, and you fix it.
And I love what you said, and I hope you guys didn't miss that. You said those that make the most mistakes win the quickest, is what you just said, right? And you prove that on the phone, right? You said somewhere between 750 to 1,000 phone calls to get your appointments when you're new. You did that on recruiting. You went out and you put yourself out there financially on a limb and said, I'm going to take 50 ZipRecruiters. You know, someone that's really good like Ryan Miller, maybe he only needs 5 ZipRecruiters. But you're new, right? You need 50 of them, you know, and just failing forward. Like I know that we say, even if you fall forward, at least you're going in the right direction. For you, that came out with that massive activity, MACC, massive action, constant correction, pops $100,000 a month agency. And how much of that did you write when you guys did that?
When we did $100,000, I did, I think I did like 10,000 of it.
Okay. So a mediocre, consistent month.
I went back to what I normally had to do. So it was just like I set the standard. I showed them that it was possible. And then they're like, okay, sounds good. So they all started to meet that standard. And as everybody else is climbing, I started to not necessarily backpedal, but just dial down what I had to do on that level and started doing some of the other stuff, which was now I need to lead from the front about recruiting. I need to lead from the front about my leadership development. I need to show you guys that after that piece is done, there's a next stage we got to grow on. And that's the biggest thing too, that I think a lot of people mistake here, Miranda, is they think, oh, I'm agency owner, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool, I'm making some money, I'm done.
Owneritis, right? They call it, right?
Yeah. And you have to really understand that you don't stop growing here ever. You've got to be the biggest person on your team to know how to deal with every situation when you hit that level. Because what you want to do is you want to show anyone and everybody whether they're brand new, just getting started, maybe they've been here for a while, that even you yourself are not coasting, but you're doing everything you can to make sure that the newest guy has the easiest time to reach the level that he wants, and that you've already paved the way, as long, keyword here, that he works hard and does everything he can to achieve it with the same level without us trying to motivate him.
Awesome. So is there anything else? I know we're going to open it up for questions here in a minute, but is there anything else that you want to kind of share that I haven't asked you yet? I know I've kind of put you through the ringer already, but. Oh, shit.